eco-terrorism, um, life. Its message is about humans interacting with nature and how sometimes we don't always understand what we're doing, and we take for granted the power of nature uh, and natural foods to heal us. It's a really interesting book and very, very good. Um, Definitely suggest reading any of her works. Her first book, My Year of Meats, is also similar. Her third novel, A Tale for the Time Being, is it's similar in style and tone. Like if it's an Ozeki book, but it is definitely way way different in subject. Okay. That is my Feta. Okay, so number 8 is wrote for a book that you feel deserves greater recognition. I totally cheated here, but I don't care because I feel very strongly about this. I picked all of James Baldwin's novels. He has 6 novels, and I think only these 2 here, his first 2, Go Tell It on the Mountain and Giovanni's Room, get any attention. So I've seen a few people talk about Another Country, which in my opinion is spectacular. Almost no one talk about the other 3. And I've read Tell Me How Long the Train's Been Gone, and I just finished If Beale Street Could Talk. Tell Me How Long the Train Has Been Gone is an amazing novel with an amazing character, and If Beale Street Could Talk is a great novel about family, and I can't wait to read Just Above My Head, his final novel. I'm also kind of sad because that means there's no more James Baldwin for me to read. He is arguably the greatest writer I've ever read. Better than Hemingway. And if you know me, that's saying a lot. He's probably my favorite author. His works are thoughtful, they're lyrical, they're entertaining. They encapsulate so much of America through the eyes of not just African Americans, but of people who weren't in the dominant culture during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. His first novel is set in kind of like 30s, 40s, 50s. Second novel is like 50s. Third novel, 60s. Fourth novel, 60s, 70s. Fifth novel's late 70s. And Just Above My Head, I forget, I haven't read it, but I imagine it's set in the contemporary time that it was written. It came out 1978, so we're going to go late 70s. But yeah, just a total master of his time. And I think he's been kind of forgotten as history's moved forward. I haven't really heard much talk about him in any of my collegiate circles, and that's a real shame. I'm going to do a really long video about James Baldwin, I've already decided. So look for that. It's going to take me a while to put everything together, and I want to read his last novel, but it's going to be a doozy of a video because he deserves it. And hopefully you can tell how passionate I am about this subject, and hopefully that encourages anyone to go out and check out James Baldwin. He's not overly intimidating, so if you're not a literary fiction kind of person, don't worry. His books are really accessible, and they're not anything crazy, which is funny considering my next book. So number 9 is Asiago, a book. Wait. Oh, I messed up. Okay. Yeah, Asiago, a book that was beyond your expectations, and that would be William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury, which I was expecting to be terrible and a slog, but I really, really enjoyed this book, actually, quite a bit. Everyone talks about the beginning, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's just so hard to read and awful. And the beginning doesn't make any sense, and it's not supposed to. You have to read the other parts for the first part to make any sense. And even then, there's going to be something, you'll get it, you'll get the gist. Some details might escape you, but you'll get it. But also, every time I would drink it, there are 4 parts. I read each part in its entirety when I read it, and I drank at least 2 glasses of wine before reading each part, which really helps to calm your brain down so you can really dive into the literature. Or at least that's what I tell myself. Alright, number 10 is Gouda, a book that was a light-hearted delight. And for that, I'm going to go with The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein, which is essentially about a book. It was a book about a race car driver who has a dog, and the story is told from the dog's perspective, about kind of what's gone on in this guy's life. Very interesting, and the ending's great. It's lighthearted. It's a summer read, a beach read. It's really great. I really enjoyed it. Teared up a little bit. So moving on, number 11 is Lindbergh, a book that was too much to endure. And that was Comanche Moon, which is the second book in the Lonesome Dove saga, but the fourth book written. So essentially Larry McMurtry wrote Lonesome Dove, which is a masterpiece and won a Pulitzer Prize. You should read that, it's very good. Then he wrote a sequel called Streets of Laredo. And then he went back and explored the two main characters from Lonesome Dove, their story in two prequel books, the first being The Dead Man's Trail, and the second being Comanche Moon, which brings you right up to the point of Lonesome Dove, or how they got to where they're at. So the reason that this was too much to endure, it's a really good book. The whole saga is good, but there are... starting with Lonesome Dove, which will break your goddamn heart wide open. It's one of the few books that made me openly weep. It was so sad. McMurtry loves just to break your heart over and over and over. And most of the time, it kind of comes out of nowhere. However, because he gave you so much information on the history of the characters in Lonesome Dove, I know how this is going to end. I knew the tragic ending for a certain romance and for a couple characters because I know what they're like after this, and I couldn't bear to watch it happen. So I've never been able to actually finish it. I've gotten very close. It was like the last 25 pages or so where I know what's happening. I know what's about to come. I just cannot watch the hammer drop. But it's not because it's a bad book. It's because of my own weak heart. And finally, number 12, we have Brie, a book that gave you a warm, mushy feeling. And that would be